Before I get into what happened next, I should catch you up. 6 months ago, we found out an asteroid was heading straight for Earth. A big one. Not a planet killer, but big enough to change everything. Governments tried to stop it. Some lied, others panicked. In the end, nothing worked. I spent those last few weeks watching the world tear itself apart. People looting, running, hiding, praying. Then came the day it hit. I saw it with my own eyes. The blast took out entire cities. The shockwave, the firestorms, the ash. Didn't just kill people. It killed the sky. The sun vanished behind a wall of dust, and with it, the old world. I survived, somehow. The first month after impact was a waking nightmare. Cold, starvation, violence, people turning on each other just to make it to the next day. We formed a group, built something like a home, just enough to keep going. We lost some good people, and we found others along the way. But now, it's been half a year, and the world isn't dead yet. I used to measure time by the sound of traffic, by the morning news, by the warmth of the sun bleeding through my window at 6:52 a.m. Now I measure it by the burn rate of candles, the distance between emergency food drops, the number of people still breathing in the bunker, and by how long it takes to melt snow into water. Half a pot for 2 hours over low flame. Outside, the world looks like the ash-covered bones of a once-living planet. Nothing moves, nothing grows. The clouds don't break anymore. They're just a wall of bruised gray, stretching across the sky like a shroud pulled tight over the earth. We named the meteor Cascade. An ironic twist, because nothing cascaded except civilization itself. We're 22 souls tucked beneath a library in what used to be Twin Falls, Idaho. Some of us are farmers. Some were teachers. A former chef. A nurse named Eliza who keeps our blood pressure in check with nothing but resolve and herbal tinctures. One kid, barely 8 years old, hasn't spoken since January. The generator failed weeks ago. Power rationing gave out last month. We moved down to the lower level, closer to the heating pipes. Every breath you see, every footstep echoes. We've painted the concrete walls with murals. Sunrises, oceans, families at picnics. Someone even added a field of corn. It's naive. It's beautiful. It reminds us why we're still here. We eat once a day. Mostly powdered meals, sometimes soaked rice with melted snow. There's talk that the military convoys stopped running east of the Rockies. No one's sure. No one's heard from the federal zones in 3 months. We burned the last of the wood stockpile last night. The fire was weak, but we huddled close and made it last. A piece of the old world, one log at a time. Outside, you don't last more than 30 minutes without thermal gear. The wind finds you, even under layers. Frostbite takes fingers like a quiet thief. The scientists said the dust would clear. They were wrong, at least about the timeline. The ejecta from the impact didn't just go up. It stayed. A veil of soot, ash, pulverized rock suspended high in the stratosphere, blocking the sun, freezing the oceans. They call it impact winter, a volcanic winter, but crueler. Average temperatures dropped 20 degrees in 2 months. Crops failed globally. Supply chains collapsed. Fisheries froze over. The Atlantic conveyors shut down. Satellite photos, if they're still being taken, would show Earth as a pale corpse. A white eye wrapped in shadow. I still think about that last morning before the impact. Coffee. My daughter's voicemail. The way sunlight caught the dust motes in my office window. Now when I dream in grayscale, like the ash has seeped into my skull. But I wake up, and I remember Rachel is still out there. Or was. Her last transmission came 81 days ago. She said she was holding on. Said her group had fuel, seeds, some kind of greenhouse rigged in an old ranger station. Tower 47. I have to believe she made it through the cold. Because if I don't, none of this means anything. Yesterday, a boy from our bunker spotted a column of smoke on the horizon. Thin, black, controlled. Could be a cooking fire. Could be a signal. Or could be scavengers. We're planning to send a party. 3 people, including me. Eliza tried to argue against it. Said we're already short on hands, short on hope. But I told her this. We're not waiting to die. We're living to find. I'll take the shortwave radio. If it still works, I'll try to broadcast from the ridge. If someone's out there, they'll hear us. If Rachel's out there, she'll know her father never stopped walking. We left the bunker before dawn. 3 of us, me, Caleb, and Jonah. Caleb was once a wilderness guide, back when people hiked mountains for leisure, not survival. Jonah's a wiry, stubborn teenager who doesn't say much but volunteered without hesitation. I tried to say no. He just stared at me until I gave up. We layered ourselves in every stitch of insulated clothing we had left. Boots patched with duct tape, scarves that had once been curtains. Our breath steamed with every step. Even with goggles, our eyelashes froze in minutes. The air was still, but the silence was heavier than the cold. We moved northwest, toward the thin smoke trail spotted yesterday. The world stretched out like a frozen graveyard. Abandoned cars buried in drifts. Trees snapped from the weight of ice. Power lines down, coated in hoarfrost, trailing like broken tendons across the snow. By noon, we passed the remains of a farmhouse. The roof had collapsed inward, snow pooling like a second ceiling. A faded plastic slide peeked out from a yard buried 6 feet deep. Jonah pointed to the chimney. No smoke, just more ice. We kept moving. Around 2 p.m., we found the first body. Half buried in snow, back against a tree. Hands still clutching a camping stove that had long since gone cold. His parka was zipped up to the chin, but his eyes were wide open. Frost on his lashes. No signs of animals. No blood, just surrender. Jonah turned away. Caleb knelt beside the man, gently shut his eyes. "There's no one left to bury him," Caleb said quietly. "So we'll remember instead." We pressed on. The wind picked up by late afternoon. Not a storm, just a cruel breeze that slid through your bones. We rationed the last of our trail water, now slush in our canteens, and chewed on frozen protein bars. At 4:17 p.m., we saw the fire. Flickering orange, half a mile off, and what looked like the remnants of a ranger station tower. One of the old firewatch points, Tower 47. My heart stopped. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Rachel. We approached slowly. Caleb unslung his rifle, though it had only 4 rounds. Jonah kept his head low. No sudden moves. The base of the tower was surrounded by scavenged fencing. Corrugated metal, snow shovels, car doors lashed together with cable. Smoke coiled from a makeshift chimney protruding through a sealed window. We stepped out into the clearing. I called out, "Hello? We're not armed. We're survivors. We're from Twin Falls." No answer. Just the hiss of wind through dead pines. Then a movement at the window, curtains drawn back. A face, pale, hollow-eyed, gone before I could place it. A moment later, the door creaked open. A woman stepped out, wrapped in a blanket, mid-30s, rifle slung low but not pointed, a necklace made of shell buttons. She stared at me like someone waking from a decade-long sleep. "You said Twin Falls?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "We've got shelter, people, supplies. You're not alone." The woman exhaled, like she hadn't heard those words in months, maybe longer. She waved us forward. Inside, it was warmer than expected. A converted stove radiated heat from a tiny fire. Cans of food stacked neatly along one wall. A radio cobbled together from parts. No signal. 5 people total. 3 adults, 2 children. Skin drawn tight over bone, but alive. One man had a bandaged leg, probably frostbite. I looked around, swallowing back the emotion choking my throat. Rachel wasn't there. But the woman, the leader, as far as I could tell, said she knew her. "She was here," she told me. "Months ago. Traveled with us for a while. Had this drive. Said she was looking for a ham signal. Your voice?" I nodded, barely able to speak. "She left after we stabilized. Said she had to keep moving east. Said there was a hydro outpost still operating near Cheyenne. Said she'd send word." My heart ached, but it beat stronger than it had in weeks. "She's alive," I whispered. The woman smiled. "If anyone made it through that storm, it's her." We stayed the night, shared food, stories, names. Before we left, I asked if they wanted to join us back at the bunker. "No," she said. "We're stable here. You've got others to protect. Go back. Keep going." Jonah hugged one of the kids before we left. Didn't say anything, just held tight. As we hiked back through the frozen silence, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Purpose. Hope. Rachel's still out there, and now I know which direction to go. It's been 24 weeks since the meteor hit. They still call it an impact event on the old NOAA transcripts, but those of us left just call it the day. The day the skies turned to fire and the world we knew was vaporized under a plume of dust and ice. Now, every sunrise is like rolling the dice. Sometimes the clouds clear just enough to let in a thin gray light. Other days, it's perpetual dusk. Ash swirling like dead snow, winds sharp as knives. Temperatures haven't climbed above freezing in months. Most nights dip below -30. And yet, we're still here. Twin Falls became something close to a real settlement again. Word of our bunker spread, not fast, but enough. Survivors trickled in from the hills, the roads, the ruins of nearby towns. Most of them half dead. Some were children with frostbitten fingers. Others were former soldiers, EMTs, teachers, even a meteorologist with a shattered arm who used to work for the Weather Channel. We absorbed who we could. There's no protocol anymore, no borders, just whether we can spare a cot and find enough calories to keep another body warm. We've converted the old courthouse basement into an infirmary. The jail is now dry storage for salvaged goods. The bank vault holds what's left of our seeds, sealed tight, kept under lock like treasure. We don't care about the money anymore. No one does. The new currency is warmth, trust, and clean water. And knowledge. That's why I've been writing this. Every night, I come back to the comms room, my sanctuary. I sit beside the ham radio and update my logs. It started as routine, but now it's become something else. A chronicle, a time capsule for a world that isn't coming back the same. And tonight, I got a signal. I almost didn't believe it. The receiver crackled around 8:17 p.m. I was mid-sentence, talking into dead air like always, when a sharp burst of static broke the silence. Then a voice. Clear, clipped. Twin Falls Station. This is Echo 3 transmitting out of Cheyenne perimeter. Repeat, Echo 3. We have established partial power from hydrogrid. We are receiving. Over. I froze. I said her name before I touched the mic. Rachel? Silence. Then, negative. This is Commander Vasquez. Who's calling? I identified myself, explained the group, the bunker, our survival. There was a pause, just long enough to make my throat tighten. Understood, he said. Rachel Michaels was here. She assisted in restoring comms and left east 3 weeks ago. She was attempting to reach a signal tower in Kansas. Said there may be another transmission node active near Fort Riley. Her last message stated she was alive, mobile, and still looking for you. I didn't respond for nearly a minute. The mic trembled in my hand. Vasquez continued. We're building something here, he said. Small, scattered, but real. If you can keep broadcasting, we'll keep listening. He gave me coordinates, an encrypted frequency. Then he was gone. I just sat there, staring at the wall, the cold barely registering. She's still out there. Rachel, still walking through the ruins, still lighting fires in the dark. Later that night, I told the others. Some didn't understand the importance. Others wept quietly. Caleb nodded once, then went to check the perimeter. That's his way. But something shifted in the room, a crack in the ice. If Cheyenne has power, then maybe the blackout isn't forever. If Rachel found her way through blizzards, looters, and ash, maybe we can too. I've begun working with Nolan, the ex-electrician who turned our bunker into a miracle of circuitry, to construct a boosted antenna. It's crude, but it might reach Kansas. We've also started tracking the skies again. The ash is thinning, just slightly. Some stars have reappeared, just pinpricks, but they're there. And when you see stars after months of darkness, it feels like the world's breathing again. There's talk of a journey east come spring, if there is a spring. We've already marked a convoy route on the map. If the winds keep shifting, if the cold breaks, if the seeds in the vault germinate, then we may have just survived the worst of it. I didn't think I'd live to see color again. But 3 days ago, the horizon went gold. It was brief, a sliver of dawn between streaks of low ash. But it wasn't the usual smothered gray. It looked real, like the sky remembered how to be blue. We all stood outside when it happened. No one spoke, no one blinked. For 10 minutes, the whole compound held its breath as the clouds broke and sunbeams filtered through, catching the frost on the radio tower like glass. Even the kids, the feral ones who've never known a day without masks and goggles, went quiet. It felt like the end of something, or maybe the beginning. That night, the greenhouse readings shifted for the first time in months. 2 degrees warmer. It's not much, but to us it's a sign, enough to try again. Caleb, Nolan, and I unearthed the last seed batch from the vault. It's our final shot at real food. Most of the global seed banks were lost in the fires or buried under collapsed cities. But we've got 3 trays of preserved heirloom strains: corn, wheat, kale, potatoes, 1,000 calories of hope per square foot. The soil's still borderline frozen, so we'll try hydroponics first. If that fails, we'll move back to basement barrels under UV. It's not ideal, but nothing is anymore. We aren't just trying to live now. We're trying to rebuild. I've been riding less and walking more, checking on the new kids, helping with the heating coils. Even joined Caleb and his scout team on a perimeter salvage run out past the riverbanks. We found a wrecked drone from the No-Eye emergency fleet, tangled in black pines. Took it apart for parts, but the memory card survived. The footage was chilling. Satellite imaging from high orbit, time-stamped 2 months post-impact. It shows massive cooling zones across the Midwest, concentric thermal anomalies spreading from ground zero. But the last frame shows the cloud breaking. It looks like Earth trying to wake up. Somewhere between then and now, something changed. Maybe the upper atmosphere is thinning. Maybe the ocean currents are stabilizing again. Maybe the Earth, after screaming for 6 months, is catching its breath. I don't know. But I know this: we aren't dead yet. Cheyenne checks in once every 48 hours, Fort Riley confirmed. Rachel hasn't reconnected, but their eastern towers caught a weak ping 2 weeks back, possibly her. They tracked the signal near Springfield. I've memorized every map between here and Missouri. If spring holds, if frost doesn't return in April, I'm going after her. People say I'm crazy to leave now, that I've become obsessed. Maybe I have. But obsession is the only reason any of us are still alive. Obsession with the next warm meal, the next working battery, the next fire. I'll leave behind these logs. I'll bury the backups in steel tins near the radio room, just in case. If someone finds them, they'll know we were here, that we fought for each other. And if I don't come back, someone else will. Because we're not survivors anymore. We're settlers of a second Earth. Spring came quietly. No headlines, no broadcasts, no trumpets blaring from mountaintops. Just a soft shift in the wind and the distant sound of thawing ice dripping from the roof. The day the river broke, I stood on the bank with Nolan, listening to the crack of water forcing its way out through the months-long freeze. It wasn't much, just a narrow trickle pushing between the sheets of ice, but it moved. It moved. We planted the seeds that morning. The kids helped. Small gloved hands pressed roots into damp soil in our rebuilt greenhouse. No one said a word, but there were tears. These were children born into ash. Some had never seen anything grow, never eaten food that wasn't freeze-dried or powdered. Now they were farmers. The UV lamps we'd hoarded burned out faster than expected, but sunlight, actual sunlight, has been hitting the panels more regularly. For the first time, we powered the entire greenhouse for 6 straight hours without draining backup batteries. There's still hunger, still cold, but hope's sprouting. We started keeping count again. Days, weeks. A fresh calendar was hung in the mess hall, scrawled by hand on salvaged cardboard. Nolan marked the first official clear sky day with a thick red X. It felt ceremonial. 2 days later, I packed my bag. A rifle, 2 extra mags, iodine tabs, jerky, a sidearm, 1 flare, and Rachel's last radio frequency. It's a long shot. Springfield is 200 miles across fractured highways, Raider territory, and snowed-in roads. But if she's alive, then so am I. They gathered at the gate when I left. Even the kids. Caleb handed me an old photograph, black and white, faded at the corners. His parents, smiling in front of a farmhouse that doesn't exist anymore. "Bring something back," he said. I promised I would. I walked south under a pale sky, clouds breaking like tired lungs, learning to breathe again. The wind had lost its bite. The air no longer smelled like cinders, but like wet pine and damp soil. I saw a crow, the first bird I'd seen in 6 months. It watched me from a broken highway sign, cocking its head like it recognized me. Maybe it did. Maybe Earth knows we made it, or that we're trying. I don't know what I'll find out there. Maybe Rachel, maybe another camp, maybe just bones and dust. But I'll walk until I find something worth walking toward. Because this isn't the end of the world. Not anymore. It's the end of the old world. And the beginning of something new.